From a teenage marriage and motherhood to a whirlwind romance with her bandmate Benny Andersson, Frida's love life was a tangled web of desire and drama. Some whispered about her wild ways, her insatiable appetite for love, and her multiple marriages. Others called her a homewrecker, a temptress who stole another woman's husband. But what makes Frida's sex life crazy is way more than that. And you'll get to understand why we said that once you watch this video to the end. Born in the shadow of World War II, Anni-Frid Lyngstad's early life was marked by loss and longing. Her German father, a soldier in the Wehrmacht, left Norway before she was born. Growing up, she believed he had died during the war. Raised by her grandmother in Sweden, Anni-Frid always felt like an outsider. She yearned for love and acceptance, a yearning that would shape her relationships with men. At just 13, she started singing professionally, a way to escape the humdrum of her small-town life. But it was also a way to attract attention, to be seen and desired. By 18, she was married to a salesman and musician, Ragnar Fredriksson. A year later, she gave birth to her first child, a son named Hans. But the marriage was troubled from the start. Around this time, the Swedish music scene was buzzing with young talent. Benny Andersson, a rising star with the popular Hepstars, was already making waves with his musical partner, Björn Ulvaeus. And it was on this vibrant scene that their paths would first cross. Anni-Frid, a captivating singer in her own right, met Benny at a music festival. Their connection was instant and undeniable, sparking a flame that would burn for years to come. Meanwhile, Björn had met the enchanting Agneta Fältskog, and their own musical partnership blossomed into romance. They became Sweden's golden couple, a pop duo with a string of hits. As fate would have it, these four individuals, Anni-Frid, Benny, Björn, and Agneta, found themselves drawn together not only by their shared passion for music, but also by a tangled web of romantic connections. While still married to Ragnar, Anni-Frid's affair with Benny began. Their connection was intense, a whirlwind of passion that would consume them both. In 1970, Anni-Frid divorced Ragnar. On the same day, her beloved grandmother passed away. It was a time of profound grief and upheaval, but also of liberation. She was free to pursue her love for Benny. Annie and Benny's passionate affair became the talk of the Swedish music scene. Their undeniable chemistry was evident both on and off stage. Some whispered that Annie was a homewrecker, a temptress who had deliberately set her sights on Benny, luring him away from his seemingly perfect wife. Others saw her as a woman simply following her heart, finally finding the passionate connection she craved. Despite the whispers and judgments, Annie and Benny's relationship deepened. They were drawn to each other like moths to a flame, their creative and romantic energies intertwining. They collaborated musically, their voices blending seamlessly in the songs that would soon become ABBA classics. Benny, a talented songwriter and musician, found a muse in Annie, and she, in turn, found a creative partner who understood her soul. But their personal life was far from stable. Both were strong-willed and independent, accustomed to getting their own way. Their fiery personalities, which fueled their creative spark, also led to explosive arguments and passionate reconciliations. Their tumultuous relationship played out against the backdrop of ABBA's meteoric rise to fame. The pressures of their global success, the constant scrutiny of the media, and the demands of their hectic schedules only intensified the existing strains in their relationship. In 1978, at the peak of ABBA's global domination, Annie and Benny decided to take the plunge and get married. It seemed like a fairy tale ending, the culmination of their passionate love affair. But the reality was far more complex. Behind the glamorous facade of their public image, their marriage was already showing cracks. Benny, despite his love for Annie, was still prone to straying, his wandering eye a constant source of insecurity for Annie. Her own insecurities and past hurts made it difficult for her to fully trust him, leading to a cycle of jealousy and mistrust. The fairy tale quickly unraveled. The constant fighting and emotional turmoil took their toll. In 1981, just 2 years after their lavish wedding, they announced their separation, shocking their fans and the world. The divorce was a devastating blow for Annie. She felt like she had failed, that she wasn't enough to keep Benny by her side. Annie's escape from the wreckage of her marriage to Benny led her to London, a bustling metropolis where she could reinvent herself and escape the constant reminders of her past. She embraced a new life, exploring her artistic boundaries and indulging in the vibrant cultural scene. It was in London that she met Heinrich Rudzow Prince Reuss von Plauen, a charming architect with a lineage that traced back to German royalty. He was a prince with a castle, a title, and a world of privilege that was a stark contrast to Annie's humble beginnings. Suddenly, the girl from a small town in Norway found herself swept up in a whirlwind romance with a real-life prince. Their relationship was a heady mix of passion and privilege. Annie, who had always felt like an outsider, was now welcomed into a world of high society, attending glamorous events and rubbing shoulders with the elite. She reveled in the luxury and stability that Rudzow provided, a stark contrast to the emotional rollercoaster of her life with Benny. But beneath the surface of their fairy tale romance, a darker reality lurked. Rudzow was battling lymphoma, a cancer that cast a shadow over their happiness. Annie, who had already endured so much loss in her life, was now facing the prospect of losing another loved one. Despite the looming threat of Rudzow's illness, they embraced life to the fullest. They were married in 1992 in a romantic ceremony at Rudzow's family castle in Fribourg, Switzerland. Annie, now a princess, seemed to have finally found her happily ever after. She immersed herself in her new life, becoming involved in charitable causes and environmental activism. She used her platform to raise awareness about issues close to her heart, championing sustainability and environmental protection. Annie also continued to nurture her musical talents. She released a solo album in Swedish in 1996, Djupa Andetag, Deep Breaths, a deeply personal project that explored themes of love, loss, and hope. The album was a critical and commercial success in Sweden, proving that she was still a force to be reckoned with in the music world. However, just as Annie seemed to have found stability and happiness, tragedy struck again. In 1998, her daughter Liselotte was tragically killed in a car accident in the United States. The news shattered Annie's world, plunging her into a deep grief that threatened to consume her. The loss of her daughter was a blow that Annie struggled to recover from. She withdrew from public life, seeking solace in the quiet beauty of her Swiss home. Rudzow, battling his own illness, provided unwavering support, but his declining health added another layer of worry and sadness to Annie's life. Rudzow's death in 1999 compounded her grief. Annie was now a widow, a mother who had lost her child, a woman grappling with immense pain and loss. She retreated further into herself, her once vibrant spirit dimmed by the weight of her sorrow. It seemed like Annie's life was defined by tragedy, but even in the darkest of times, she found a way to survive. She found solace in her music, in her environmental work, and in the quiet beauty of her Swiss home. And eventually, she found love again. In 2007, Annie found love again with Henry Smith, 5th Viscount Hambledon. He was a British aristocrat, a man of wealth and influence. But unlike her previous relationships with royalty and nobility, this one felt different. There were no castles or titles, no grand gestures or public displays of affection. Instead, there was a quiet companionship, a shared love of nature, and a deep respect for each other's privacy. Annie, who had always craved love and acceptance, finally found it in a man who saw her for who she was, not for her fame or her past. Henry accepted her with all her baggage, her triumphs and tragedies, her joys and sorrows. He was there for her during the difficult years following her daughter's death and the loss of her third husband. He provided a steady presence, a shoulder to cry on, a safe harbor in the storm. Annie, who had once been the glamorous pop star, was now content with a quieter life. She rarely gave interviews or made public appearances. She was happy to be out of the spotlight, living a life of simple pleasures with the man she loved. But one question lingered in the minds of many. Why hadn't Annie married Henry? After 3 marriages, all of which ended in divorce or death, had she finally given up on the institution of marriage? Or was there another reason, a deeper truth hidden beneath the surface? The answer, it seems, lies in Annie's own journey of self-discovery. After a lifetime of seeking love and validation in the arms of others, she finally found it within herself. She realized that marriage wasn't a necessary ingredient for happiness. She had found love, companionship, and stability with Henry, and that was enough. Annie had learned that true happiness comes from within, not from external sources like fame, fortune, or a husband. She had learned to love herself, to accept her past, and to embrace the present. She was no longer the young girl seeking love and acceptance. She was a woman who had lived a full life, a woman who had known joy and sorrow, love and loss. She was a woman who had finally found peace, not in the arms of a prince or a viscount, but in the quiet solitude of her own heart. Today, Anni-Frid lives a quiet life in Switzerland with Henry. She is a dedicated environmental activist and philanthropist, supporting various charities and organizations. While she rarely performs publicly anymore, her love for music remains strong. She occasionally collaborates with other artists and enjoys attending concerts and supporting young musicians. She cherishes her privacy and spends her time surrounded by the beauty of the Swiss Alps, finding joy in the simple pleasures of life and the enduring power of love.